everyone, welcome to today's class. The topic of today's class is Environmental Externalities Part 2. This is the roadmap of today's class. So first I'm going to raise this question, how do we solve the problem of externalities, which I have already raised in the last class. Next, I'm going to provide you some solutions to the problem of externalities in this class. So private sector solution to negative externalities, public sector solution to negative as well as positive externalities, and towards the end of the class we are going to discuss what is the difference between price and quantity approach to addressing externalities. These are some learning outcomes, so you will obviously have an answer of how to solve the problem of externalities. With that, you are going to have an understanding of Coasian solution to the externalities and what are the problems lies with the Coasian solutions, and also government intervention to solve the problem of externalities in terms of tax, subsidies and regulations. Moving on, a little bit of recap. So in the last class we have discussed what is the concept of externalities. We have discussed about positive externality, production as well as consumption positive externality. We have also discussed about negative production as well as consumption externality, and we have seen that how externality actually leading to a situation where socially efficient outcome is not being found in the market solution, right? Now let us understand the question, how do we solve the problem of externality? Now let us address the question and let us try to find out the answer of this question. So we have two types of solution. One is private sector solution to the problem of externality, where we are not going to have any government intervention, and second is public sector solution to the problem of externality, where government intervention, we can expect government intervention. Now first let me discuss the private sector solution of negative externality. So in microeconomics, the market is innocent until proven guilty, and similarly the government is often guilty until proven innocent. An excellent application of this principle can be found in a classic work by economist Ronald Coase, a professor at law school at the University of Chicago, who asked in 1960, why won't the market simply compensate the affected parties for externalities? So now we are going to discuss Coase theorem part 1. When there are well-defined property rights and costless bargaining, then negotiations between the party creating the externality and the party affected by the externality can bring about the socially optimal market quantity. So what is property right? A property right is the exclusive authority to determine how a resource is used, whether that resource is owned by government or by individuals. Society approves the uses selected by the holder of the property rights with governmental administered force and with social ostracism. Now, already Coase said or suggested the question of property rights. In this context, let us assume that fishermen, they own the river, they have the property right of the river. So in that case, from fishermen's perspective, what would be fishermen's demand? They would obviously want the steel plant owner to end the sludge dumping, because that is impacting their livelihood, because fishes are dying, right? They can demand it rightfully because of the property rights. So property rights is basically conferring the ability to control the river. Here, river is the resources. What about the steel factory owner? So here the assumption is that no technology is there to take care of this dump, right? So if the fishermen, they are demanding that you can't pollute my river, then only one way out is you have to stop the production or shut down the production, because in each unit of production they will generate some amount of dump. Okay. This is one way. The next way could be a kind of a negotiation. Let's say for each unit of steel production, steel owner would pay $100 given she can maximize her profit. Okay. This is better than shutting down the business or shutting down the farm entirely. Why this $100 is kind of a damage the steel factory is causing to the fish, or the steel factory is causing to the fishermen. So this can be treated as another input cost, right? Now, This can be represented in terms of this graphical illustration, where you can see the steel market is equilibrium at point A, as you can see the cursor, with quantity Q1, it's here on the x-axis, and price P1, right, on the y-axis. So at point A, what is happening? Private marginal benefit is exactly equal to private marginal cost. Now, this is not socially optimum level of steel production. Where is that? That optimum level is at point B, where SMC, that the social marginal cost, is nothing but private marginal cost plus marginal damage. That $100 the fisherman were charging the steel owner, that is the marginal damage, right? So social marginal cost is nothing but the private marginal cost plus marginal damage. And at point B, as you can see, that SMC is exactly equating with PMB, that is a private marginal benefit curve. So here marginal damage is 100 per unit. So this was the Coase theorem part 1. Now let us focus on the Coase theorem part 2. Coase also further said the efficient solution to an externality does not depend on which party is assigned the property rights, as long as someone is assigned those rights. So it's not necessarily the case that fishermen have to have the property right. It can also be with the steel owner. Okay. So what if the plant owner has the property right? In this case, what fishermen could do, they could propose that we would pay $100 for each unit to the farm so that they produce less. And for the farm owner, it is like an opportunity cost. If they are not taking this $100, so they will be missing it out, right? It's like foregoing payment of $100 for each unit would give the same result, okay? So plant owner would also accept, even if they are having the property right with them, we can also attain the socially optimum level situation. Now, at this context, I am going to ask you one question. So what are problems associated with the Coasian solution? Just try to think about it. I'll get back to you. So there are various types of problem with the Coasian solution. First, let me discuss the assignment problem. So the first problem involves assigning the blame. Rivers can be very long, and there may be other pollution sources along the way that are doing some of the damage to the fish. The fish may also be dwindling for natural reasons such as disease or a rise in natural predators. In many cases, it is impossible to assign blame for externalities to one specific unit. And even if you are, let's say you are able to do that, you are able to find one person who is doing, who is actually causing the damage. Then in the steel plant example, we have taken this as like $100 as a damage per unit cost, right? But who decided this $100? Fisherman might have overstated the damage. Maybe damage is not that much. And even if fishermen have, let's say they're getting this $100 per unit as a damage cost, who is going to get how much, and whose fish catching is actually getting affected? These are some impossible questions to answer. So these problems is called as an assignment problem. So we are not able to assign whom to blame and whom to give the benefit properly. The next is holdout problem. Suppose, let's say we could calculate the cost, the marginal damage, and we could find out, let's say the scientist community could find out that, let's say if we are paying $1 for each fisherman, then the damage is being compensated. Then 100, in this case, since the property right is with the fisherman, the 100 fishermen have to agree for the steel production to be continued. So if they are not giving their, let's say if they are not saying that they can produce, until that the steel production can't happen. Suppose 99 fishermen went and collected the money. So only one fisherman is left. Now that fisherman, now the steel owner factory, they want that fisherman also to give the agreement that okay, you can produce. But now this fisherman is in a very powerful position. Now he might say that okay, I don't want $1, I want more. And now at this point the plant owner might think that okay, fine, if it is the like last obstacle. If I can pay more just to move the obstacle, and then I can continue my production. So this is known as like holdout problems, and it only arises when the property rights is shared by many. Then another problem is called free rider problem. Let's say in this situation, steel plant has the property rights. Okay, suppose the steel plant has property rights to the river, and it agrees to reduce production by 1 unit for each $100 received from fisherman. Then the Coasian solution would be fisherman to pay $100 and for the plant to then move to the optimal level of production. Remember the point B. Suppose that the optimal reduction is in steel production, where social marginal benefits and social marginal cost are equal, is 100 units. Then each fisherman pays $100 for a total of, let's say, 10,000, and the plant reduces production by 100 units. Again, the last fisherman story will come here. So farm already, let's say, received $9,900 to reduce the production, and they have also reduced 99 units of production. So this 99 units production reduction will also already have given the benefit, and this benefit will be equally shared. So the last person who still have not gone and paid his share of money, he can think, okay, I have already received the benefit for 1 unit. It may not be that, it may not matter that much, right? So why would I pay $100? So this problem is known as free rider problem. So when an investment has a personal cost but a common benefit, individuals generally tend to underinvest. Next is transaction cost and negotiating problem. Finally, the Coasian approach ignores the fundamental problem, that is, it is hard to negotiate when there are large numbers of individuals on one or both sides of the negotiation. How can the 100 fishermen effectively get together and figure out how much to charge or pay the steel plant? This problem is amplified for an externality such as global warming, where the potentially divergent interest of billions of parties on one side must be somehow aggregated for a negotiation. So we were discussing global warming in the last class, if you remember. So which country is contributing and who is getting affected, and they might have various types of interest. So negotiation at this point with various countries might be very difficult. So even if Coase is giving some solution, so for some practical purposes, it has some problems. What is the role of government in Coase theorem? Is very limited role of the government. The government role is to only create the property rights and somehow to ensure the property rights of the whichever party whichever party is involved. Okay, now let's have some reality check. So remember the example I have given you in the last class about the smoking in a restaurant. So can you really pay someone to not smoke in the restaurant? I mean, even if Coase is giving the solution to solve the problem of externality, but just think about it. Can you really go to someone and ask that, okay, if I'm giving you the money, please don't smoke? This is a very kind of a weird kind of a conversation which might take place. It might not happen at all. Similarly, the example I have given regarding, let's say your neighbor is playing the song at a very higher volume. Can you really go and ask your neighbor that please compensate me, I'm getting affected by your high volume of the song? So again, Coase provide this as a solution that you need to be compensated, but in reality this might not be a case. It might be a little bit uncomfortable conversation to hold between you and your neighbor. Now I'm going to ask you two questions. Is Coasian solution helpful for the environmental externalities such as global warming? Because we have just discussed that how global warming problem may not be solved through the Coasian solution. Then is there any public sector remedies of externalities? Now to answer this question, so yes, there are various kinds of instruments where government should intervene in this kind of situation. Number one is corrective taxation. We have seen that the Coasian goal of internalizing the externality may be difficult to achieve in practice in the private market. the government can achieve the same outcome in a straightforward way. However, by taxing the steel producer an amount, let's say MD, for each unit of steel produced. Again, let us focus on this diagram which we have been discussing for the since the last class. So, steel market is initially at equilibrium point A here in this graph. At point A, as we know that PMB is equal to SMB equal to PMC. At point A, steel plant is producing at Q1 quantity and at price P1. Given the externality with a cost MD, that is a socially optimum level of production would be at point B here, where social marginal cost and social marginal benefit is exactly equal. So, suppose government levies a per unit tax that is exactly equal to the marginal damage. So, that tax would be for the steel plant owner, the tax would be considered as another input cost, right? So, because of this taxation, this PMC1 curve would exactly shift to this red, it would become the red curve, it would shift by this MD unit. So, PMC2, this is the red curve, is exactly equal to the SMC. So, tax effectively internalizes the externality and leads to a socially optimum level of outcome. So, this type of corrective taxes is known as Pigovian taxes or Pigovian taxation, and this is named Pigovian taxation is after the very famous economist Arthur Pigou, as he provided the solution of negative externality. Next, we are going to discuss subsidies. The Coasian solution to cases such as the oil exploration case would be for the other oil producers to take up a collection to pay the initial driller to search for more oil reserves, thus giving them the chance to make more money from any oil that is found. But as we discussed, this may not be feasible. So, the government can achieve the same outcome by making a payment or a subsidy to the initial driller to search for more oil. The amount of this subsidy would exactly equal the benefit to the other oil companies and would cause the initial driller to search for more oil since his cost per barrel has been lowered. Again, this can be represented through this graphical illustration. Again, the market is initially in equilibrium at point A here. At point A, we know that PMC, that is the private marginal cost, is exactly equal to PMB, and we are producing Q1 barrels of oil at price P1. Given the positive externality with a benefit of MB, that is marginal benefit, the socially optimum production would be at point B here, right, where social marginal cost and benefit are equal, and we know here we can produce Q2, right. Suppose the government pays a subsidy per barrel of oil produced, and that is exactly the marginal benefit. Suppose the government is paying this subsidy to the first oil driller, okay. So, as a result, what would happen? As a result, the subsidy would lower the private marginal cost of oil production. So, shifting the private marginal cost curve down by MB for each unit produced. So, this subsidy result in a new PMC curve, that is PMC2, this one, which is identical to the SMC curve, that is social marginal cost curve. This subsidy has caused the initial driller to internalize the positive externality. The market moved from a situation of underproduction to one of optimal production. Okay. Now, another approach is regulation. Then you might ask that if the government knows where the socially optimal level of production is, why doesn't it just mandate that production take place at that level and forget about trying to give private actors incentives to produce at the optimal point? Why not just mandate a level of steel production of Q2 and be done with it? That is one way of dealing, right? So, in an ideal world, Pigovian taxation and regulation would be identical, because regulation appears much more straightforward. However, it has been the traditional choice for addressing environmental externalities in the United States and around the world. Here I am going to give you two examples. So when the US government wanted to reduce emission of sulfur dioxide in 1970s, it did so by putting a limit or cap on the amount of sulfur dioxide that producers could emit, not by a tax or tax on emissions. In 1987, when the nations of the world wanted to phase out the use of chlorofluorocarbons, and that is CFCs, which were damaging the ozone layer, they banned the use of CFCs rather than impose a large tax on products that use CFC. So in real world, we are observing that government is going by the regulation instead of taxation and subsidies. At least these two examples are telling us that. Now, at this point, I am going to pose the next question. So what is the difference between price and quantity approach to address this question of externality? So to answer this question, we are going to understand this basic model. So far we were in the goods market model, right? Steel production, steel market. Here we are talking about market for pollution reduction. So on horizontal axis, what we have on horizontal axis, we have extent of pollution reduction, and moving left to right, extent of pollution reduction is high. Okay, so less pollution. R full, like here, indicates that pollution has been reduced to 0. More pollution is indicated as you move to the left, this direction, okay, on the horizontal axis, obviously. At P full, the maximum amount of pollution is being produced. On the vertical axis, what we have? The cost of pollution reduction to the plant or the benefit of pollution reduction to society. That is a benefit to other producers and consumers who are not compensated for the negative externality. The private marginal benefit of pollution reduction is 0, obviously. So it is represented by the horizontal axis. There is no gain to the plant's private interest from reducing the dumping. The PMC curve represents the plant's private marginal cost of reducing pollution. The PMC curve slopes upward because of diminishing marginal productivity of this input. The plant will choose 0 reduction and a full amount of pollution, that is P full, that is at point A, at which PMC of 0 equals the PMB of 0. Now, what is the optimal level of pollution reduction? The optimum is always found at the point at which the social marginal benefit and cost are equal. Here, that is the point B. The optimal quality of pollution reduction is R star here at this corresponding point at that quantity, okay. The marginal benefits of reduction, that is the damage done by pollution, and the marginal cost of reduction are equal, obviously. Setting the optimal amount of pollution reduction is same as the setting the optimal amount of pollution. So if the free market outcome is pollution reduction of 0 and pollution of P full, then the optimum is pollution reduction of R star here and the pollution of P star. Now, this basic model now we are going to apply to understand price regulation model versus quantity regulation model, okay. Now, let's say the optimal tax, we have already discussed about the Pigovian taxation, right. So, the optimal tax would be the marginal damage done by pollution, that is $100. In this situation, the government would set a tax of $100 on each unit of pollution. So, what is the plant's decision under this tax? So, for each unit of pollution the plant makes, it pays a tax of $100. If there is any pollution reduction that the plant can do at that cost, that is less than $100, it will be cost effective for the plant to make that reduction. The plant will pay some amount less than $100 to get rid of the pollution and avoid paying a tax of $100. So, if this plan is in place, plants will have an incentive to reduce pollution just to avoid the tax up to the point B, okay, up to the point at which the cost of the reduction is equal to the tax of $100. That is now focus on this curve, that is plant will walk up their marginal cost curve, reducing pollution up to a reduction of R star at that point B. Okay. So beyond that point, the cost of reducing pollution exceeds $100 that they pay in tax. So they will just choose to pay taxes on any additional units of pollution rather than to reduce pollution further. Thus, a Pigovian tax equal to $100 achieve the socially optimum level of pollution reduction, just as in the earlier analysis. So some kind of reduction is happening if you are imposing the tax. Regulation is even more straightforward to analyze in this framework. The government simply mandates that the plant have to reduce pollution by an amount of R star to get the optimal level of pollution level P star. However, it seems more difficult than the taxation, because in this case the government need to know not only MD, that is the marginal damage, but also the shape of the MC curve as well. This difficulty is, however, just a feature of our assumption of a constant. So we have assumed $100 of marginal damage, right, for each unit. For the more general case of a falling marginal damage, the government needs to know the shape of both MC and MD in order to set either the optimal tax or the optimal regulation. Again, another reality check. So this is a simple model, only one steel plant, but if you are looking at in the real scenario, there will be many farms with different marginal cost curve, because some farm will have a cheaper technology to reduce the pollution, some farm may not have. In this case, if you are imposing regulation, so equal amount of pollution reduction for both the farms, then farms will with higher marginal cost curve will be affected. Similarly, if you are imposing taxation, farms with higher marginal cost curve would reduce more, while farms with lower marginal cost would reduce less, but reaching at an optimal level of reduction. So the thing is, quantity regulation ensure environmental protection but at a variable cost to farms. Similarly, price regulation ensures the cost to the farms but at a variable level of environmental protection. So if the value of getting the environmental protection close to right is high, then quantity regulations will be preferred. If getting the protection close to right is not so important, then price regulations are a preferred option. So we are towards the end of the lecture. So in this lecture, we actually could answer could provide the solution of the problem of externalities. Private market based solution was, you have to define the property rights, the affected party or the party who is affecting, either one of them can have the property rights. Next was, we have also seen that there are problems with the Coasian solution. Defining property rights may be difficult, or even if there is we have defined property right, there might be another issues. And towards the end, we have also observed that government intervention in terms of taxation, subsidies and regulations, how it actually solved the problem of externality, and in real world people have in real world various countries have also adopted these kinds of policies to address the issue of externality. With this, I am going to end this lecture. Thank you.